When was the last time electoral rolls were constantly revised, even when the date of voting is right here?
The sad truth is that the Supreme Court has put its stamp of approval on the deletion of no less than 27 lakh people. So, SIR in West Bengal is Special Impediment Removal Exercise. BJP, in its quest for power, in its desperation to win Bengal, faces a special impediment. The court can say stop elections till these 27 lakh people get a fair hearing, till their appeals are settled.
Hello and welcome. You're watching me, Sanket Upadhyay, on TheFederal. The show is called AI with Sanket. This is the AI of news, because news in India today requires not artificial but analytical intelligence. Is there a miscarriage of voter justice in the state of West Bengal? The special intensive revision, which has disenfranchised more than 90 lakh voters in West Bengal, of which 27 lakh voters have appealed, and that appeal of 27 lakh voters has largely gone unheard. And in the middle of all of this, when this matter reached the Supreme Court, we saw something which is unprecedented. For the first time in independent India, presumably, voter rolls have not been fixed for a very long time before the elections, which means the polling will take place for the first phase on the 23rd of April. And even now, there is this conversation about the voter rolls being revised. This has never happened. In a situation like this, when your vote rolls or voter rolls are not frozen, when there are so many appeals pending, is this a case of miscarriage of voter justice? And in order to avoid this, could the votes or the voting of the 23rd of April have been postponed? After all, what's the purpose of elections? To carry out a democratic exercise. Now, is that a means to the end or the end itself? Is conducting the election so important that 27 lakh appeals go unheard? We put this to a short discussion with someone who has been raising his voice continuously on this matter. Joining us right now is Mr. Yogendra Yadav, who has extensively spoken about this issue. He has spoken about this right here on TheFederal as well, as to what exactly is happening in the special intensive revision exercise in Bengal. Mr. Yogendra Yadav, I was reading the newspaper today, saw a lot of commotion around the electoral rolls, and it just struck me that with just one day left for polling, for voting, to hear headlines like electoral rolls are still being revised and a fresh list will be accommodated is not something that one is familiar hearing. When was the last time electoral rolls were constantly revised, even when the date of voting is right here?
Sanket, the simple answer is never. Because there is a simple law in this country which says that electoral rolls, that is to say voters list, should be frozen on the last day of nomination, which is to say almost a month before the actual day of polling. This is a law, and therefore it is not possible for Election Commission to add or subtract any name after the last day of nomination. This is an unusual case. This is an unusual case because the Supreme Court is invoking its very special powers under Article 142. Article 142 of the Constitution gives the Supreme Court a power to do whatever it deems fit in the interest of justice. So they can override law, they can override constitutional precedents, they can override everything. But can they override the ground realities? So the simple fact, Sanket, is that while the Supreme Court is saying that yes, even last minute insertions can be made, shall be made. The truth is that nothing of that is going to happen. The sad truth is that the Supreme Court has put its stamp of approval on the deletion of no less than 27 lakh people. Having put their stamp, the Supreme Court feels bad about it. They are awkward. They know they have done something which is unacceptable. They know they've done something which goes against the basic tenets of justice. And now the Supreme Court wants to, shall we say, pepper it over. Supreme Court now wants to wrap this message, having realized that they've done it, having realized that they actually cannot possibly roll it back now. They have made all kinds of nice and polite noises, which I assume would amount to nothing. It's harsh, but it is true. The Supreme Court has allowed the Election Commission to delete 27 additional 27 lakh names. The total deletion in Bengal are 91 lakhs. But the Supreme Court has allowed the Election Commission to get away with additional, targeted, completely arbitrary 27 lakh deletions. And having done so, Supreme Court is now making exceptions. And those exceptions could be 27, they could be 2,700, but doesn't matter. 27 lakhs minus 2,700 amounts to nothing. This is truly what is happening. So all the noise that we hear in the typical Indian style, some VIPs will be given a special pass. And these 27 lakh people are out of the voters list practically as far as the reality of the ground is concerned.
Mr. Yogendra Yadav, as a statistical exercise, I can understand you can argue that there can be an anomaly or a variation of, say, a percentage. Usually, statisticians keep this margin of 1%, 2%. But for that, a basic assumption has to be that the intentions are not malified. Here, with the Supreme Court nudging and saying that you please add these names also, is it not very clear that perhaps the SIR exercise was not as simple and sober and straightforward as it was made out to be, particularly just before elections? The fact that your electoral rolls are being revised even right up till the date of voting begs this very simple answer that what is more important, the exercise of conducting an election or to conduct it fairly?
Absolutely. And unfortunately, that cruel and tragic choice has been forced upon us by the conduct of the Election Commission and by the silence of the Supreme Court in going along with what the Election Commission was doing. Now, remember, SIR has been done all over the country. West Bengal is not the only case. SIR procedures have remained standard across the country. The law is not different from Bengal than it is for the rest of the country. However, the implementation of SIR has been so exceptionally different in West Bengal compared to any other state. And my question is, why did the Election Commission treat West Bengal in such an unusual, exceptional way? Simple statistics do not give you the reason, because I've checked everything, Sanket. The one simple suspicion could be right at the beginning of SIR, the Election Commission said, oh my God, something is very specially wrong with with West Bengal voter list. Possibly the list is very inflated. So I checked it. Was the West Bengal voter list prior to SIR inflated? And Sanket, surprisingly, the answer is West Bengal voter list, the size of it was the closest to the 100% mark compared to any other state. West Bengal had at that point, in the month of October, when SIR was announced in West Bengal, at that point, West Bengal had 6 crore 67 lakh adult persons on its population. And on the voters list, it had 6 crore 66 lakhs. It's almost matching to the dot. I have rarely seen such a close match. So you cannot say West Bengal voters list were unduly inflated. All right, I checked. Is it that just before SIR, somehow TMC government had managed to insert many names and the unverified names were included? We checked for 2 months just before SIR. Yes, more than normal applications were made, but 41% of those applications were rejected. So clearly, if the government was pushing it, 95% would have been accepted. Nothing of that kind has happened. Third, then we looked at the mapping data. Now, what is mapping? For those who have not undergone SIR yet, they may not understand it. Mapping in Election Commission's language means you have to link yourself with someone who was on the voters list, either yourself or someone from your paternal family. You have to link them, your grandfather or somebody, you have to link them with that. Those who are not linked are called unmapped. So the election commission had said, oh my God, Bengal has very few people who are unmapped. Some heraferi has happened and Bengal officials have managed to put all people in the mapped category. I checked the data. The proportion of unmapped in Bengal is 4.5%, which is on the lower side. What about Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh? Only 1.6%. So Election Commission says Bengal is suspiciously low because it's 4.5%. Chhattisgarh is 3.5%. Tamil Nadu is 2.3%. Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh both are 1.6%. But there's nothing wrong with them. So in mapping, there was no problem. And finally, in the first stage of deletion refers to those whose names have been deleted on the suspicion they are absent, dead, or shifted, ASDD, the standard thing. Even on that, West Bengal is not very different from other states. 7.7% names have been deleted, which is exactly the same as in the case of Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, and other states. So why is it that Election Commission thought that something very special needed to be done for Bengal? There is no statistical reason at all. West Bengal is not a statistical anomaly. But after the first stage, Election Commission decides, for reasons which cannot be attached to any statistics, which cannot be explained by any formal understanding of Bengal, which can only be explained by the politics of Bengal. Election Commission, after stage one, says, no, we need something special on Bengal. They appoint roll observers. How many? 30 roll observers in Bengal. How many did the Election Commission appoint in Uttar Pradesh? 4. 4 in Uttar Pradesh, 30 in West Bengal. Election Commission appoints micro observers. How many? 8,000. How many did it appoint in Uttar Pradesh or in any other state for that matter? 0. Election Commission decides to transfer officers. How many? I believe about 510 officers were transferred. How many in West Bengal? Probably 491. I may be wrong with one or two figures slightly. But basically, 95% of those who are being transferred are from West Bengal. So something very special is being done. And as you know now, paramilitary forces posting. So what is special about Bengal? Well, what is special about Bengal is BJP and its desperation. BJP has a 4D problem in West Bengal. What is that 4D problem? BJP is desperate to win Bengal. BJP is organizationally very deficient and it's deteriorated in West Bengal. It faces a determined opposition in the form of Mamata Banerjee, and it has a demographic problem, which is about 1/3 of West Bengal would never vote for BJP. So SIR in West Bengal is special impediment removal exercise. BJP, in its quest for power, in its desperation to win Bengal, faces a special impediment, namely about 1/3, little less than 1/3 voters, namely Muslims, who would not vote for the BJP. And somehow, if their votes could be brought down, then the path for BJP's possible victory can be cleared. And this is what SIR is all about.
Do you, Mr. Yogendra Yadav, feel that this defeats the very purpose of conducting elections and the electoral process? I mean, voting is a means to an end, not the end itself. So just to say that your voting day... Sorry?
Yeah, as they say in democracy, भाई वोटर सरकार को चुनता है, सरकार तो वोटर को नहीं चुनती ना. This is what's happening in Bengal. And if you think my conclusions are extreme, let me just give you some simple data. All of this is in the public domain. Nandigram, is a constituency in Midnapur district. It's a VIP constituency. Everyone knows about it. What is the proportion of Muslims in Nandigram? About 25%. Of those who have been recommended for deletion, how many Muslims? 95%. Now, you were speaking of statistical probability. All right, 25 can become 28. 25 can become 21. 25 can, in some cases, become 30. It cannot become 95. No statistical randomness, representativeness can give you 95 out of 25% population. Bhawanipur, Mamata Banerjee's own constituency, 54% Muslims, and among those deleted, 76%. How is that possible? You tell me. So this is what we are looking at, and you are absolutely right to say this completely inverts the structure of electoral democracy. And here I would urge Sanket that we should look at the larger changes that are being brought about. It's not just SIR. SIR is one piece in the larger scheme of things. We are witnessing a change in the Desh, Kal, and Patra of democracy. These are three critical elements: Desh, Kal, Patra. Desh here refers to geographies, Kal refers to calendar, and Patra refers to the actors. The BJP wants to change all these three parts of the electoral architecture of India. Desh is being transformed through delimitation. Carve out constituencies in such a way that BJP's chances of victory can be enhanced. And if you think this is speculation, someone might think, aha, Yogenji is floating conspiracy theories. All I would say, and I would urge you, Sanket, please do a program. I would happily give you half an hour on Assam delimitation. Do not show my face, just show the maps to your audience. Once you see the maps of how constituencies have been drawn in Assam, then you would stop disbelieving me. You would stop saying, no, conspiracy theory. I mean, conspiracy of the worst kind has been done in Assam. Constituencies have been carved out looking at booth-wise voting pattern to ensure that a constituency can be made more BJP friendly. So that is the Desh part of it. Kala is about changing the calendar of election. One nation, one election is about simply changing the Kala, calendar of election, to ensure that you have to have elections only once in 5 years, which you can then manage. Basically, you have to manage 3 months of media, security forces, money, and everything. That's the Kala. And then there is Patram problem, which is to say some parts of this country, some sections of this society do not vote for BJP. How do you cut their votes down? SIR is the solution. So SIR, delimitation, and one nation, one election neatly fit into a pattern. The pattern is to change the electoral battleground in a way so as to permanently favor the BJP and ensure that the country can have the formality of elections while the result would always favor the BJP. This is what we are looking at.
Interesting. But my final question to you, Mr. Yogen, do you feel that particularly in this case, as you said that it's peculiar, it's never happened in independent India, that your electoral rolls are not frozen and the election dates are right here, that this be treated as a special circumstance, maybe even defer the date of polling? I know it's too late. It's not going to happen. But what is more important, fair elections or elections just because they're required?
It's a very good question, but you are asking this question to a wrong person. This question should have been posed to the Supreme Court of India. This question was posed to the Supreme Court of India. Sadly, while it is absolutely true that the Election Commission was one-sided, Election Commission was behaving as really the agent of the BJP. Instructions coming from BJP headquarters were being implemented by Election Commission then and today. Today, when the Election Commission gives a list of 1,000 people who need to be detained, these are, I mean, how many of them are BJP workers? None. That's the situation. So this was happening. But sadly, the Supreme Court could not prevent it from happening. Sadly, the Supreme Court went along with it. Sadly, the Supreme Court allowed an extraordinary mechanism of adjudication even after petitions were verified. Sadly, the Supreme Court entrusted it to some judges brought in from outside and from the state to adjudicate 60 lakh cases in 35 days. Sadly, the Supreme Court then assumed that all those 65 lakh cases, in which case each judge was disposing of every case within 2.5 minutes, less than 2.5 minutes. Sadly, the Supreme Court accepted that this was a judicious reasoning that was happening. And sadly, when all this was done, after that, the Supreme Court suddenly possibly realizes that something very seriously has gone wrong and is now trying some desperate last minute mechanism. Sadly, they would not work out. All this thing of lists are being changed at the last minute, all this is of no consequence whatsoever. Sanket, I can tell you, 27 lakh people have been denied wrongly of their voting rights. And mind you, these are not people who are absent or dead. These are people who have given the application, who have appeared for a hearing, who have submitted their documents. In large number of cases, they have submitted even their passports. They have been denied. High court judges have been denied. People who are conducting SIR themselves have been thrown out of the list of citizens. These are the people. And sadly, out of this 27,000 lakh, even if 2,700 are allowed by the, let's say, the next phase of voting, it is of no consequence. It's just symbolic. It is only cosmetic. The fact is the Supreme Court did not intervene. Yes, if necessary, election should have been postponed. If you can use Article 142 for all these other things, if you can use Article 142 to create this extraordinary institution of adjudication, you could use Article 142.
So you
Why
feel
did
that
you
the
not do
elections,
so?
one Mr. Yogendra Yadav, you're saying that this was a fit case for the elections to be postponed, considering the very special circumstances in which this SIR has not been able to deliver justice.
The Supreme Court itself had created a mechanism which was bound not to deliver a fair list. Having made one error, one very gross mistake and miscarriage of justice, the only way of correcting that would have been then to say, all right, wait for 1 or 2 more months. Let these at least these 27 lakh people should be given a fair appeal. And all that we know, Sanket, so far as of this afternoon, is that 134 appeals have been heard, 134 out of 27 lakhs. But out of 134, 132 appeals have been found to be correct, which is to say that so far the appellate tribunal seems to believe that most of the people who have been denied voting rights have been denied unfairly. If this is the case, and if the Supreme Court realizes even today that this is the case, the court can say stop elections till these 27 lakh people get a fair hearing, till their appeals are settled. Either allow them to vote. That was a clear option. In fact, they need not have postponed the elections. The Supreme Court could have simply said, pending their appeal, we allow them to vote. The court did not say so. So when? Otherwise, postpone the election. What else is the option?
I mean, the other option is that if this election is conducted, can in a post-voting scenario, the Supreme Court come in and say that you hold back the result so that we can weigh all our
Sanket,
options?
honestly, our judicial structure is such that none of this works. Post-election petitions, after the polling, election petitions typically take 6 years. And by then, everything is over.
Yeah.
So whatever
could
could have been done. So I'm not saying Election Commission should postpone election. My clear thing is Election Commission should allow everyone who has appealed to vote till their appeal is pending. But sadly, the deadline for that is over. So yes, Election Commission is the principal culprit. But sadly, the Supreme Court has not done what it could have or should have done.
I get it. Mr. Yogendra Yadav, thank you very much. These are extraordinary times, and you explained it in such a way that the viewer needs to understand. Thank you very much for your time, sir. Thank you.